I mean, contrary to what it might appear, I very much don't enjoy pain and suffering. I generally try to avoid them. But
The Barkley Marathons are underway in Morgan County. The East Tennessee tradition is one of the world's hardest races to complete. Gary Lazarus Lake Cantrell came up with the idea of the marathons back in 1986, and since then, only 20 runners have been able to complete the strenuous trek over mountains and thickets. Some runners come back each year to give it a try. It's the 8th year for Morgan County native John Kelly to turn out for the race. He's finished the Barkleys 3 times.
Oftentimes, the goals that we have, the things that we want, a bit of pain and suffering stands in the way between us and those goals. So I grew up in remote East Tennessee, actually kind of right across the road from where the Barkley Marathons took place, in the middle of nowhere. I ran in high school. I was good. I was not great, I was a fairly good number 5 cross-country runner on a fairly good team.
I'd like to talk about the Appalachian Trail FKT attempt. So on the Appalachian Trail, are you running, it's 2,197 miles. Are you running that, or are you running, is there a part of it? What is the... Can you help us laymen's know the information as far as the Appalachian Trail FKT attempt?
Yeah, it's it's the full thing, and so it's roughly 2,200 miles, around 500,000 feet of elevation gain.
I'm really sorry, y'all. This is just... It's not gonna happen.
Nothing to be sorry about. We're all proud of what you've done. Proud of you.
And so you had mentioned the Hurricane Helene relief. Why is that something that's close to you?
Well, I mean, it's literally close to me. I live right in the middle of the affected area.
Well, here's the current position of Helene, now a tropical storm with winds down to 60 miles per hour sustained. It's going to be curling up into Tennessee.
I was actually I was out of town for work the week that it hit.
Oh, that's even scarier.
Yeah, so got back right after it went through. So my big concern was, am I going to be able to get home?
What is that like to... I mean, I can't imagine as a father being away from my family while that's happening. What's going through your head through that period of time?
The Patina'd Podcast is about the earned wisdom found in pain. It's about chasing failure, catching it, and using that as an opportunity. It's about scar tissue and sinew. It's about stretch marks and dented fenders and refusing to hide them. It's about pushing our insecurities and shame to the forefront instead of behind us. Instead of seeing rust as something that compromises a structure's integrity, we choose to see it as the grit that builds character. This is the Patina'd Podcast.
Okay, welcome to another episode of the Patina'd Podcast. I'm really excited today for our guest. We have a legend on today. John, I've had a lot of really cool runners come on the show. For some reason, ultra runners are they're just easier to talk to for podcast stuff. I love it. They're highly accessible. So really excited to have you on. You're up there on the top echelon of really known ultra runners out there that have been doing for years really, really cool things, for at least a decade now, doing really, really cool things. So John Kelly, as I've mentioned, is an ultra runner amongst a whole lot of notable things. He has FKTs, or fastest known times, the Wainwright's 2:14 and 22. Is that 352 miles?
Around that.
On that?
It's one of those things that a lot of the British rounds are effectively peak bagging, and so it's make your own route. There's no trails or defined lines or anything. So yeah, it's a matter of determining the optimal route for 214 peaks, which what I did which was largely built upon what previous people did, ended up measured by my watch being about 350 miles with
That's
a lot of
wild.
vert.
Yeah, a lot of vert, as you said, peaks. And I like that too. I could imagine that would be fun for someone like yourself, just to kind of create and be able to be analytical and creative as you're going through the process and make your own trail. I imagine that would be very fun to do. And then, also the Patina'd Way in 21. That's a 268-mile course, also in the UK. And that one was cool because, as I'm doing this research on you, I'm looking at the record, the FKT. That record stood from 1989 to when you took the record. And then someone came and took the record from you like 8 days later, and then you took the record back. How long did it take you to go through and take that record back after it was taken from you?
Yeah, so I did do that and break the long-standing record, and then my good pal Damian Hull broke my record a week later, and so I went back the following year and got it back. But that's one of the fun aspects of these. I always look at these things as kind of pushing each other to build upon these records. And if Damian hadn't have done that, there's absolutely no way I would have come back and done it in the time that I did the following year. I knew that I could do better than I did the first time, but I don't think that I would have done that much better. I went about 64 hours, and then Damien went about 61, and then I went about 58.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big jump from 64 to 58. Yeah, so what is it? Why was it? Was it because it was your buddy? Was it because it was Damien that broke it? Like, because there are other FKTs that you took and somebody else now has that record. What was it about this particular record where you're like, no, I'm going to take that back. That one's mine. Give it back.
Well, but part of it was losing it a week later. that stuck
okay.
with it. But even if he hadn't have done that, I think I would have had another go at it, because I had some I actually had an ulcer during that first run. So I knew that I could do better. And it is, it's effectively the premier long route in the UK. As far as short routes go, it's the Bob Graham round is right there, with which Jack Kinzel, another American JK, now has. And so the Patina'd Way is the UK's first national trail. It's what the Spine Race uses as its course. And so it's a big one, and I wanted to be sure that I really kind of left my best effort on it, left my mark on it. And so, again, after that first time, even in that week before Damien broke it, I knew that I could do better, and I likely would have gone back. But if he hadn't have done what he did, I don't think I would have even, I don't think I would have targeted such a fast time, even the second time around.
Yeah. So I had mentioned one of the really cool things about ultra runners is even like the big names like yourself, you guys give little podcasts like me access to you guys, and that's really cool. The other thing is, I've dabbled around in ultra running myself over the last 3 years, and if not for a torn ACL, would have continued over the last year. But amongst the access to you guys is, I love the insights that you guys bring to the table in terms of resilience. Like, obviously anybody is going to know that, okay, well, you guys are not just robots, you're human beings. And in order to do what you do, there's a high level of resilience to get there, and your guys' insights in terms of what that looks like to achieve it. So we're not going to talk, I say that to say we're not only going to talk about running in this podcast, but we're going to correlate that to mindset and how to do that in the day-to-day type of stuff. But I wanted to say that for those who are listening who are not runners, but there is a huge, I guess, connection, like I was saying, from what you have to do from a mindset perspective, being in a run, to what that looks like from day-to-day life and challenges that we have to deal with in a day-to-day life. amongst the other accomplishments, you're one of two runners. I think there's still only two runners that have completed the Barkley Marathons 3 times, which and we're going to talk a lot more about Barkley's and kind of mentality and your relationship with it. And the other thing that's cool too is you've ran a marathon, a 26.2 in under 2:30, I believe, or a sub 2:30 marathon. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was 2:26:50.
Yeah.
The International Marathon 2022, I believe it was.
And so that's rare too, because I think for at least for the layman like myself, like why would someone like me get into ultra? I mean, there's a myriad of different reasons, but also I'm very slow, and ultra running is like ultimately for the slow guy like me, it's like being able to kind of get into the grind, get into the pain cave, as is mentioned in the ultra scene often, and being able to rely not just on talent or athleticism, but be able to rely on your grit and be able to go and continue in spite of pain. But to run a sub 2:30, like that's another level of athleticism that someone like me isn't willing to put in the work to be able to achieve. Let me say it that way. And so that's unique too for someone who's an ultra runner to also have that level of speed. So that's really unique as a runner. When did you start running, John?
So I mean, I ran in high school. I was good. I was not great, I was a fairly good number 5 cross country runner on a fairly good team. But then I kind of took a decade off, did the intramural sports circuit in college and grad school. Came back to it when I was about 30, and just signed up for a marathon. The next year I signed up for an Ironman and started discovering that ultra running is a thing, and kind of just gradually snowballed and worked my way into these longer events, and figured out that's what I'm best at. That's what I enjoy most. But I did want to, I mean, that marathon, I wanted to come back and just give it one more go and kind of effectively get my lifetime best there. And you do, to really excel. I mean, as much as people look at ultras and think that it's, a slow slog the whole way, you've got to, and this is something I've focused a lot on with my coach, David Roach, you've got to keep your speed. You've got to keep your top end high enough to where when you're going up these huge climbs and you're out there for, however long, you're not hitting your red line. You've got to keep your red line high enough to where you stay away from it, because no one can be out there hitting that threshold for 24, 48, however many hours one of these things takes.
It is you hitting the red line, as you put it, or not wanting to come close to hitting the red line. Is that on the uphills? Is that on the downhills for you? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's mainly the uphills. If you took an extremely good marathon runner, an elite level road runner, and put them out on a trail or on an ultra, they would likely crush the uphills. I mean, that's the same engine you're using for that. It's the same muscles where they would really struggle is when they hit the big downhills, and that's where you've got the eccentric loading on your muscles that you get the really sore quads, and it just kind of rips you apart if you're not used to that type of thing. And it's also where, depending on the trail, there's a lot more technique to it. You've got to learn how to run the type of surface that you're doing.
Yeah. And you also have the Appalachian Trail FKT attempt that we're also going to talk about in this interview. Also, I think it's interesting you have this background from a professional career standpoint that's within analytics or data, but I'm curious how that even correlates over into the the running aspect side of things and the pre-planning and all the analytics that need to go into it, not just from, there's a lot of focus on nutrition, but there would be focus on the trail itself, or focus on what certain team members are going to be doing, crew members are going to be doing to help you, and all the different analytics that would go into that. I would imagine it would take someone very methodical to be able to, kind of plan that out. So from a professional career standpoint, which one came first? You got into it because that's naturally how you are. You're methodical, analytical, and that is the type of job that wouldn't suit you well? Or is it that you found that out about yourself through running and then you sought a career in that aspect?
No, it was, the background and analytics and science and engineering definitely came first. I signed up for that first marathon as I was finishing up my PhD and kind of contemplating what was coming next, what adventures could I go on, and that kind of gap between school and my first real non-academic, academic jobs are very real, but my first job post-grad school. So yeah, that definitely came first, and is something that again, as I've done these types of events, I have found that as you increase in distance, as you increase in complexity, that's more variables added to the mix, and that's something that I am able to do quite effectively, and so gives me an additional advantage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was that one of the aspects that really started drawing you toward the ultra stuff as opposed to more shorter distance or marathon distance stuff? What drew you to that?
Yeah, so that's part of it. Just kind of finding that it's a puzzle to solve. It's another kind of engineering problem to take on that I enjoy doing. The other part is as you get to these longer distances, especially on trails, it feels more like an adventure than it does a race. There's a big exploration aspect to it. There's a lot of incredible stuff that I get to see. And I very much enjoy the things that are, not a fixed distance, but a specific route or a specific objective, tagging all the Wainwrights, or doing the Pennine Way or the Tour de Giant is two trails combined that circle the Aosta Valley in Italy. So again, not necessarily running an arbitrary route on a fixed distance, but running an arbitrary distance on a fixed route.
Mm. Yeah, and so that allows for the creativity along with the trying to figure it out, sort of analytical side of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold up. Wait a minute. It's an interesting interview, no? Take a moment to click subscribe, follow, like, all those things. Please leave a comment in the comment section. Tell me what you think about this episode. Tell me what I could be doing better. I appreciate all the feedback. That's all I'm going to bother you with. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
Well, I'm a therapist in the mental health world, and I like to, with these interviews, kind of go into the backstory with people, and maybe that helps begin to paint a picture of how guests develop to become the highly resilient person that they are. And it's interesting because you might think, especially with ultra runners, like I think for a long time I thought, well, ultra runners all must have a background of a whole lot of pain and trauma, because like what are they working through out there? Like what are they going? And I found out I was wrong, which is unfortunate for me. But it does talk. It's cool to see the human condition is so wide range in terms of how people get to where they are. So if you don't mind, John, tell us a little bit about your background, childhood, parenting, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I grew up in remote East Tennessee, actually kind of right across the road from where the Barkley Marathons took place, in the middle of nowhere. I went to high school in a nearby city, and then moved on to college. I mean, I had a pretty great childhood and kind of on a farm, being able to explore the outdoors and do all the fun things that having all that space provides. Had great parents that encouraged me to kind of go after big goals and to enjoy the outdoors and take on these types of things. So no, it's definitely not some sort of childhood trauma that I'm trying to escape from ultra running. That's something that, particularly with Barkley, people paint it as the masochist's marathon, and the race director is a sadist, and that's not the case at all. I mean, contrary to what it might appear, I very much don't enjoy pain and suffering. I generally try to avoid them, but oftentimes the goals that we have, the things that we want, a bit of pain and suffering stands in the way between us and those goals. And so ultra running allows me a good method to kind of practice overcoming adversity and dealing with those challenges. And I find that's quite helpful when those things come up in real situations in life.
Yeah. So you said growing up, and I have family that lives in Tennessee as well, kind of about a half an hour from Chattanooga. It's funny listening to you talk. I wouldn't have guessed that you're from Tennessee with that.
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up originally, I had the real accent. Then I went to the city, like I said, for high school, and it just kind of, it got kind of hidden away. So generally, I get a little upset or get too much whiskey in me before it come back out now.
Well, there it was. There it is. Yeah, and I noticed you moved to the UK for some period of time. Was that for was that for running and for career, or one or the other? Because that, a lot of these cool FKTs you have were done in the UK.
Yeah, I helped start a company over there, and so we moved across to build out the team in person, and then I spent most of the time working remotely thanks to COVID. So fortunately, we still did quite well with that, but in the meantime, it did afford me the opportunity to explore a lot of these places and take on a lot of the big challenges that I otherwise never would have seen.
On these long runs, my head goes into all sorts of, I'm thinking about all sorts of different stuff. For me, like, some of my best thinking happens when I'm in the shower. I don't know if that's for other people, but for some reason I feel like I come up with something smart when I'm in the shower. But also when I'm on long runs, it happens. I'll think of something. I'm like, that's like how I came up with the Patina'd Podcast. The name of the Patina'd Podcast happened on a long run. When you're out there and you're spending hours in training or hours even just in like actually in a competition or on an FKT, is this where you're having these thoughts about, I can start a business doing this, or this is a way to improve the business? Like, how are you coming up with those ideas?
There have definitely been a lot of big problems solved while I'm running. When we first started the company, I was actually living just outside of DC and working downtown. So I would commute by running and biking, and so I would solve a lot of problems on the way home or the way in each day. And so that's definitely a great time to have that sort of unstructured thinking. I don't like to listen to music or podcasts or anything while I run, specifically because that's really the one time of day where I don't have to think about anything in particular, and my mind is free to kind of solve these problems that are floating around in my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a pretty common thread with a lot of successful runners. Now I do know several who have talked about they do listen to music or do listen to podcasts, but a common thread with a lot of successful runners is they're not listening to anything to distract them from their thoughts. They're just zoned into whatever comes up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Barkley. And so for those who are not runners listening to this, and they've heard us kind of hint at this a little bit, can you explain to the common man or woman, what is Barkley Marathons and why is it so highly revered?
Yeah, I think Barkley is a love it or hate it type thing. It's definitely a niche within the niche world of ultra running. So it is, it's called a 100 miler. It's probably more around 130 miles, around 25 or 26 miles for each of 5 loops. The most recent course had about 15,000 feet of climbing per loop, and it is unmarked, off trail, no GPS allowed, so you're navigating with a map and compass. Extremely rough East Tennessee mountains and forests, so everything kind of looks the same. There's a lot of briars and dense undergrowth, and it's difficult to navigate. It's difficult to move fast, and the cutoff is 60 hours, and only where are we at now? 20 people have finished since the race began in 1986. It was only 15 until a few years ago, and then we had 2 straight years where there were collectively 5 new finishers in those 2 years. So the course constantly evolves and changes, and kind of the goal of that is to keep it right at the threshold of what's possible. And as gear gets better, as training gets better, as strategy and knowledge gets better, that requires the course getting a little bit more difficult to compensate for those things.
And so you're out there for, like you said, it's 60 hours you got to complete it.
I mean, everyone that's finished in there's not time to spare. Everyone that has finished in the past decade has been within 2 hours of that cutoff.
I'm curious then, what does that look like when you're out on a course and you're trying to navigate in the dark and you're running through all these briars or through all these thorns, you're there's not a clearly marked path. What's going through your head in those times? Like, am I going to die out here? Are they going to find me? Or how am I, like, what's going through your head?
So I mean, that's one thing. It's not dangerous. I mean, again, people love to depict it that way. You get cut up from the briars. Those heal within a week, generally. Everyone who has ever done the race has self-extracted. They've never had to send search and rescue out for anyone. And so, you're focusing on moving forward. You're really focused on the navigation, because I mean, that's a big part of it. Again, things look the same out there in those woods. And so if you kind of let your mind slip and wander, it's quite easy to get a bit off course. And once you get off course, it's extremely difficult to find your way back onto it.
Is that harder from like a mental acuity side, or does it actually help you zone in better? Like, I'm struggling with even how to ask the question, but like, does the fact that you got to be so hyper focused on coordinates or on direction, on mapping where you're at, it helps time go by faster maybe, or it's worse? I'm
not sure about the time aspect. I will say that as as I get deeper into it and sleep deprivation starts to kick in, I've found that the parts where I struggle most with the sleep deprivation is actually the small sections that are on an actual trail. And my mind thinks that it can kind of just shut off and go on autopilot. Whereas the parts where I'm more focused on the navigation, I don't have as much of an issue with the sleep deprivation because my mind is fully engaged and working.
What's your relationship with this race in particular? Because like you said, you grew up in the area where the race is held, but it seems like when people think about Barkley, they think about you. Like you're, and obviously because you're one of the top, you finished it 3 times, but to even go and attempt to do it 3 times, or, like I think about Ray Sanchez, who's out where we're at. And I think this was his 17th time doing Badwater, or his 17th finish at Badwater. I can't remember, but like most people are going to try that one time and be like, okay, good. I checked the box and then I'm done. So when there's these races that have this kind of high esteem to it because they're extreme, people want to check that box, but then they want to be done with it. They're like, okay, good. I'm done. But you keep returning back to it. What is it? Is it the relationship with the founder of the race? Is it the location of the race? Like, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's right there, again, right across the road from where I grew up, from where my parents and family are. So it doubles as a family trip home, and it's just something that that's always been part of the big appeal of it to me, is that it's there in my home mountains. It's effectively my home course. I genuinely enjoy getting out there and exploring those mountains and areas that I probably haven't been before. A lot of those areas you're actually in the park, you're not allowed to go other than during the race. So it's a great opportunity for that, and to show people from around the world my home, to take them on a little tour out there.
Yeah, it's a tour where you're not holding their hand, though. They're just having to roam around with a map and a compass.
Yeah, they got to keep up if they want the tour.
Yeah. Well, I guess, what does that look like then? Because I have, I think I've watched 2 documentaries on it. So people do kind of team up for a period of time. Is that that's an allowed strategy? What does that look like from a strategy perspective, going out there with somebody else?
It's definitely beneficial both ways. I mean, you don't want someone who is basically just a parasite out there, kind of hanging on, doing nothing. But
that would be me.
Yeah. It should be a symbiotic relationship, even if it's slightly more beneficial in one direction. It's useful to have someone to again kind of keep your brain engaged, maybe talk with a bit if you start to get a drift off a little. And also just having two heads is always better than one if both are genuinely thinking about the navigation and focused on that, because it's almost inevitable that if you're by yourself, at some point you're gonna make a mindless, careless mistake, and the odds that if you have 2 or 3 people, the odds that everyone makes the same mindless, careless mistake at the same time is very small. So you want that kind of fail-safe, that you make your dumb mistake and someone's behind you to say, hey, wait a second, are you sure about that?
And so as you go through the loop, and some of those people you might be partnering up with to finish said loop, or to have that secondary mind, by the time you're going through the loop the 3rd time or the 4th time, they're probably not there. But do your bearings kind of catch up? Is it it's the same loop every time, or like your bearings kind of you've figured it out by the third or fourth loop?
I mean, it's the same loop, but you're going in different directions and at different times of day and in different mental states. So it can very much seem different on each loop, but you do definitely, and I mean, I still do this even on the parts of the course that I've seen dozens of times. On each loop, I'm making mental notes of waypoints, little landmarks that can help navigation in both directions, whether it's a big boulder or a tree that's fallen or, an odd shaped formation, anything that, you can just see on subsequent loops and say, hey, there it is. I'm on the right track.
I mean, I can't imagine, because me being a layman, I'm thinking, well, after the second loop, you probably start to kind of be able to connect with the trail, even see how there's like brush taken down, and now there's actually maybe a footpath created of some sort or something like that. But
I mean, that's
no idea.
Also, it gets quite dangerous, because you can kind of think that sometimes, and then it just turns out to be a little deer trail or something else that's leading you out, or another Barkley runner that went the wrong way and is leading you off in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I mean, I get lost on like actual trails that are like made to go out on, so I can't imagine how hard that would be. What allows you to push through when you feel physically done or mentally done, and you've come up to the space where you're just like I don't know, like what, I don't think I can go anymore. I guess, do you hit those points? And when you do, what allows you to push through them?
I mean, for one thing, you've got to remember why you're out there and how fortunate it is to even have the opportunity. And I've very much, reached that point in my life as well, where whether it's due to injury or something else, I very much recognize that, hey, this might be the last chance I ever have to be out here, seeing this area, seeing these things, exploring this land. And so, gotta appreciate and take advantage of that opportunity while you have it. The other big thing is, a few things. I mean, in ultras, it saying from the ultra legend David Horton, it never always gets worse. In shorter, reasonable length road races, you kind of just have this linear decline until you finish, and you want to cross the finish line at rock bottom, completely spent. Whereas in ultras, there's a lot of ups and downs, and so you might seem like you're hitting rock bottom, but then you can pop back out of it. But then the last thing is I zoom way in, just focus on the next hill, the next little checkpoint, the next thing that is sort of a manageable size. And then I also zoom way out and think of the big picture, that, you've been training for this for months, years, and, it might seem like this impossibly long distance that's remaining, but, say I have 2 days in a race remaining. Yeah, that sounds really long, but in the context of really it's the end of a months or years long journey of getting there. It's nothing. It's, you're already at the finish line, and you've just got to get across it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I like that. So it's the term is segmenting, that how some people call it is segmenting. There's a Navy SEAL turned governor turned political pundit analyst. I don't know how to say it, but Eric Greitens, and he has a really good book called Resilience, which is aptly named, and it's about resilience. But he talks about in SEAL training, segmenting is not focusing on the night, not focusing on the many days ahead or the many hours ahead. It's focusing on the next meal, just on the next thing. And I've noticed that within the ultra scene too. It's the next aid station, or like you said, it's the next hill, it's the next checkpoint. And that seems to really flow really well within the normal life stuff. It doesn't just need to be Navy SEAL training or an ultra race or FKT or something. It can literally be, I hate my job, I'm depressed, I'm whatever. And then zoning in on the next action, the next behavior, the next task that needs to be had, and then mustering up the energy just for that next thing. Right. Instead of 4 steps down the road,
Yep.
So yeah, I just had Paul Reed talk about this, where he's like, the anxiety he has. Paul Reed is this MMA fighter, and he's kind of gained UK notoriety, legendary status because of his age. He started MMA in his 30s, and his last fight was in his 50s. But he talks about the anxiety that he would have, especially in the earlier parts of his career, heading up to a fight. And he would say to himself, give yourself 25 minutes, just 25 minutes. You're in there for 25 minutes, and then you'll be right back here in the locker room. Just focus on the next 25 minutes. And wherever it is, there seems to be, when there's resilience, there seems to be this connection where people can notice their limitations. So they have to then focus, zoom in, say, okay, what can I do? What do I have to focus on next to be able to get this task accomplished? So, yeah. And then I like that secondary aspect that you're talking about, where now there's the zoning out too, or zooming out and saying, okay, look at all the work that you've put in. Look at, you're kind of finding whys essentially. Okay. And recently Barkley's had the changes, and has that renewed some energy for you with it as the race changed and became even harder? Has the higher likelihood of failure helped you become this renewed energy towards Barkley's?
Yeah, it was definitely course was significantly harder this year. Generally the course changes kind of range in terms of whether it's a small change or a big one. This year was one of the bigger jumps, and I honestly don't know if it's possible for me to finish on the current course, and there is a certain appeal to that of it kind of going back to being this unknown for me, of this big challenge to see if I can accomplish it. Whereas, the past few years, to be honest, it's been more of, I know I can do this as long as I don't make a big mistake or get hurt, or there's some just atrocious weather conditions. And so, it's difficult, and I do very much want to get another finish. Jared has 4. I'd love to match Jared there, and Jared Campbell, that is. And but yeah, there's also this appealing aspect to it of it's back to being something that is going to force me to reach as far as I possibly can. And if I do come up short still, at least I know that I did everything that I can.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about the Appalachian Trail FKT attempt. So on the Appalachian Trail, are you running, it's 2,197 miles. Are you, like, in my course Google search, are you running that, or are you running, is there a part of it? What is the... Can you help us layman's know the information as far as the Appalachian Trail FKT attempt?
Yeah, it's it's the full thing, and so yeah, it's roughly 2,200 miles, around 500,000 feet of elevation gain, and the current record is just an astounding fastest known time set by Tara Dower last year in 40 days and 18 hours. And so, it's running the full length of it on rugged East Coast rocky, rooty, muddy trails. And,
That is an absurd amount of miles.
And this, and then ultras in general, running is a loose term, nothing of that distance. People aren't running uphills. The general, my strategy for this was to, you power hike the ups, and I wanted to chill enough to where I could then cruise on the downs and the flats and the actual runnable sections, because a lot of this is so rocky and rough that I mean, there's really no way of running on it.
That's always like one of the first questions that people ask me. They're like, "You run the whole time?" Like, no, that's no, I'm not running the whole time. And especially for me, being again like nowhere near where you're at. And like, yeah, there's a lot of walking in there, especially on the uphills. But okay, so unfortunately, your FKT fell short, and that was because of injury. So you want to talk about some of that a little bit, and how are you doing with that? Like, because I would imagine, again, kind of doing my research on you, and just even in this conversation with you, you're a highly analytical guy. I can't imagine the amount of hours of prep that went into this, just from imagining and envisioning what could possibly happen and trying to get all the different things put in place, all the different team members or crew members kind of, and what they're going to do, all the highly analytical preparation that you've done for it, and then falling short due to injury. How are you processing all that?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I was doing extremely well, and well on record pace, and looking to be the first person to go under 40 days, and really kind of felt that was in the bag, felt it was a sure thing, with only about 300 miles left. And that was right up until it wasn't. And kind of that injury kicked in and made it impossible to continue with. Again, it seems so close to the end, almost 85% to the end. But it was 300 miles of really rough, rugged terrain in New Hampshire and Maine. Injury simply made it impossible to continue moving forward. And so, yeah, that is tough. It's really tough to put that much into something and make it that far, and be on pace for your big goal, and then to have it suddenly end. But going into anything like this, that's a risk. There are a lot of things that can happen, and if something's a sure thing, it's to me not really worth doing. It's a task. It's not a goal. And so there was a lot that was still achieved along the way. A lot of lessons learned, a lot of good that came out of it. Foremost, we raised another $65,000 for Hurricane Helene relief in southern Appalachia. And so that was huge. And yeah, it's in a way, though, also it's almost, it sounds odd, but it's a confidence boost to make it that far, and to be well under record pace, and to have it end with an injury. It's kind of like I would rather have that happen than to get that far and just kind of realize, I can't move fast enough. I'm not going to make it.
Yeah. I could see that, where like an injury almost feels like it's more, you can wrap your mind around it versus just feeling like you didn't have enough to complete it. And so you had mentioned the Hurricane Helene relief. Why is that something that's close to you?
Well, I mean, it's literally close to me. I live right in the middle of the affected area for that, and I did a lot of work in the immediate aftermath, so I saw that firsthand. And the southern portion of the trail goes right through that area, and so the donations for that have gone to local charities that are along the Appalachian Trail, helping these communities rebuild, helping the trail itself. There was over 400 miles of trail that was initially closed after the storm. And so all of that is going to these organizations to help with the long-term recovery. Is there's still a lot to do, both at the at the individual level, at the business level, and at the public infrastructure level. There's a lot of rebuilding that's going to take many years to get done.
And you're a father of four, I believe, husband. And so was your family home, anything like that, directly impacted from the hurricane?
We were fortunate in that we didn't suffer any major long-term damage. We lost power and water for a while, and our road was washed out. But they did a great job repairing the road. I mean, it's still down to a single lane in places, and you feel like you could drop off the side of the cliff driving down it, but it's passable. And so that's a lot better than a lot of these communities have that were in these kind of lower lying valleys and hollers where the rivers, and in some cases even just these tiny peaceful creeks ran that just became these monstrous deluges and washed out in entire communities completely.
Mm-hmm. And so you guys weren't evacuated. You were able to kind of hunker down and stay there. And how was that as far as being, father, husband, and, protector for your family sort of deal?
Yeah, I was actually, I was out of town for work the week that it hit.
Oh, that's even scarier.
Yeah, so got back right after it went through. So my big concern was, am I going to be able to get home? I kind of mapped out a route that got me there. I still wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get all the way there because, well, our house sits up on a hill. Everything surrounding that hill was under an enormous amount of water, to the point that, like, the baseball fields below our house, one of the scoreboards, it's like 15 feet up in the air, it has a giant dent in the side of it still, where something floated in to the side of it. And so, I was considering, am I going to have to find somewhere to park and run the rest of the way home? But I was able, fortunately, to get home and kind of immediately start recovery from there, starting with our own home and then gradually working our way out to the neighborhood and the surrounding community and then outlying areas.
What is that like to, I mean, I can't imagine as a father being away from my family while that's happening. Like, are you in constant contact with them? Did you lose contact with them? And what's going through your head through that period of time?
Yeah, fortunately, we were able to maintain contact, and a lot of areas didn't, because the power was, just wiped out across the entire region, and a lot of the cell towers didn't have backup generators, so the cell towers didn't have power. But fortunately, we were able to maintain contact and communication. And fortunately, my parents actually were visiting at the time, so they were there to give some extra help. And my own dad is very handy and knowledgeable on being able to kind of keep things running and repair things as needed. So that was good.
So kind of continuing with this theme of family, like one of the things that for me, I had mentioned I had an ACL tear that was in last September. When I would be out on long training runs, I would have this guilt. Like, what am I doing out here? I should be with my kids. I should be doing different things with my family, and I'd have all these different ideas of what I would want to be doing with my family. And then when my ACL ruptured, then it was like, okay, now here's the time. I'm going to do these things with my family, all these things that I have guilt for not having time for. And so it's been nice, actually. It's been really nice. And it's been hard to get back into investing time into training because I've been enjoying it so much. So how do you go from being a guy with a career to doing these really cool things? Like, you know, I don't know what would be going through my mind being away from my family for days at a time on a run in terms of like this internal struggle, like with it. So is that something for you that you struggle with, or your family's just like, no, this is what Dad does, and this, so, and how is that for you?
So it is tough for sure. And it's something that is difficult while I'm out there, something I think about. Like the AT, my family was there for a large portion of it. And, I was only able to see them at road crossings. So it's still there. But I also know at the same time that, I'm doing these things makes me better as a person. It makes me a better father for the time that I'm there, and can be fully present. And it's something that I want my children to take a lot away from as well, to go out there and pursue their passions and take on these big goals and whatever pursuit they want to go after. And so I want them to take a lot away from that as well, more so than me kind of sitting around the house and being there, but maybe not still actually being engaged or doing anything. And the final aspect of this is, I do this semi-professionally. Yeah, I still have a job, but it's more than just a hobby to me. And so that's part of doing that. The same as any other athlete or anyone else that has a job that requires them to travel or do anything else to spend time away from family.
Yeah, the aspect of it being part of a job too, I think would probably help with that too. Do you feel like that's, when you think people talk about what's your why, what do you feel like? Is family your why? Are there many whys? Like, what is the thing that's driving you forward?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of whys. Setting that example for my kids is one of them. But I mean, again, this is also an activity that I enjoy. I feel it teaches me a lot that again applies to not just being a father, but to all areas of my life, really. Working Hurricane Helene recovery. It was a huge boost. Having, again, kind of dealt with this artificial adversity so many times, I was much better at handling actual adversity and knowing what to do and being able to stay focused and stay on top of things and not waste time at aid stations, as we would say in ultra running. And so that's a big part of it. And then again, I love getting out and exploring the mountains. And I've kind of looked at myself a lot as a time crunched hiker. I would love to go out and do all of these big hikes, but at the same time, I don't have time to go out there and do it. So if I run, I can see a lot of the same things in a much shorter amount of time.
I like how you stated it too. The artificial, that artificial adversity relates directly to when real adversity comes. I know that's true, but I don't know if I've ever been able to communicate it in that way. And then another thing you've talked about, which I've heard you talk about, which is called flexible consistency. I think was your quote, flexible consistency. Let's talk about flexible consistency.
It's basically just do what works until it doesn't, and then do something else. It's doing any of these things, you want to get a good, solid, efficient routine where you're not wasting time. You're not taking risks. You are doing exactly what you know to the T. You're doing it quickly. You're doing it effectively. You know that it works. But in any of these long events, or in anything in life, really, like, circumstances and conditions can change. Maybe my stomach turns, maybe the weather turns, maybe I have blister issues or another problem, maybe I'm not sleeping enough. And so when those issues or changes in circumstances pop up, you have to be able to adapt. And so you adapt to them, you find something that resolves those issues, and then that becomes your new consistent. Keep doing that, and as long as it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I call it grace and boundaries when I'm working with clients, and grace and boundaries kind of being this recipe for consistency, where I'd say there's two different types of boundaries. One is rigid, very, very firm, no flex. And then the majority of your boundaries are going to be flexible. And that's where grace comes in. And like where I'd say like an example of a rigid boundary would be like someone like me who's an addict and has been sober for 18 years. I will not use any mind altering substances, for example, right? Or somebody or like me, I will not put myself in any situation with another female that would even be considered as a flirtatious or a something beyond that would disrespect my relationship with my wife, right? Like that's very rigid. But there are a lot of other boundaries where it's flexible. Like if my goal this morning is to come in here and do deadlifts, but I wake up with an achy back, then and that would be stupid to then continue to follow through and do my deadlifts today. And I need to flex according, and maybe I'm going to do yoga, or I'm going to go out on a run, or I'm going to do something different. I can still kind of maintain being physically active, but without harming myself. And so the way I say it is like, think of a guardrail from point A to point B. It's instead of it being a firm guardrail, it's a bungee cord, and the bungee cord allows this flex so that it puts you back on course, so that you're staying consistent within whatever the main foundation of what you're trying to do is. So yeah, I love that idea of flexible consistency. Okay, and before we go here, if you were to create a race that you could not complete, and I know you already said Barkley's, you're not sure you could complete the new course, but if you were to create a race that was John Kelly, it was a repellent to John Kelly that he could not complete, he could not finish, what would it look like?
But other people could finish. Is that the key here? Because there's it's
I would say
it's that no one can finish.
Yeah, I would say that you can't finish.
The cutoff of 8 seconds. Done.
Yeah. So you can't, in that you couldn't complete because of like it would be not because it would be something that would be physically impossible from the example you just gave, but because of the challenge.
Well, I mean, one of my big Achilles heels so far has been altitude. I've never lived at altitude. I've done things to kind of try to acclimate to it before, but still I've never done well at races like hard rock, even Tour de Géant, which isn't as high as hard rock, but it's still higher than what I'm used to, higher than where I've lived. So it would have, something like Barkley, but at altitude, I think would do me in pretty quick. Hopefully I can solve that problem one day.
Yeah. You ever think of doing something like that with your analytical mind and your ability to plan and schedule things and be able to be kind of regimented in that area? You ever think that's in your future?
Just as far as acclimating to altitude,
creating a race, a race that people are frightened and allured by.
Yeah, I've got some ideas for races. It would be around where I live, so it's not at altitude. but that's one thing that I'd love to do one day, but it's, that's another question of time and being able to have the time for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, John, for coming on. Do you feel like there's anything we didn't cover that we should have?
No, I think that was pretty solid coverage there.
Yeah, and what's next for you? Are you going to attempt Appalachian Trail again in the near future? What's next for you?
An MRI on Thursday to figure out what's going on with my leg. So, and we'll.
How is that going? So you don't have a firm diagnosis on it yet, or you do, and you're just not sure what the recovery looks like?
Yeah, no, not yet. You can't know anything for sure without imaging. So, just taking it light and easy until we get an answer there.
I'm honored to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on. It's really cool for you to do so.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Patina'd Podcast. There are other shows that emphasize resilience, but my intent is to normalize personal development through embracing challenge by interviewing the common man and woman, the person that you and I can relate to. If you are someone who wants to soak up the insights of normal people doing extraordinary things, please subscribe. If you know somebody who is overwhelmed by fear and complacency, please share this podcast with them. I'm your host, Kenny Hill, and I run a private practice near Sacramento, California called Recovery Hill. My website is in the description tab along with my social media links.
We wear our struggles, no trace erased. In vulnerability, we find our place. Rust is grit, not decay. We're chasing shadows in the light. Embracing failures, wings take flight. Within the darkness, we find our sight. The Patina'd Podcast, our beacon bright. Rust is grit, not decay. We're chasing shadows in the light. Embracing failures, wings take flight. Within the darkness, we find our sight. The Patina'd Podcast, our beacon bright. We're chasing shadows in the light. Embracing failures, wings take flight. Within the darkness, we find our sight. The Patina'd Podcast, our beacon bright. Scar tissue woven into grace. Each imperfection a familiar face. We wear our struggles, no trace erased. In vulnerability, we find our place. Rust is grit, not decay. We're chasing shadows in the light. Embracing failures, wings take flight. Within the darkness, we find our sight. The Patina'd Podcast, our beacon bright. We're chasing shadows in the light. Embracing failures, wings take flight. Within the darkness, we find our sight. The Patina'd Podcast, our beacon bright.